Welcome to this In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of Whitewater Community Television, and glad you're able to join us for what hopefully will be an informative conversation, series of conversations. The obviously election is over, so I'm not going to tell you to get registered to vote. I'm not going to tell you about voting places or any of that. We'll pick that up a couple of months from now. We do have with us once again, as we did a few weeks ago, and we said that we would drag her back, and we have, Kate Kotan. Kate with the City of Richmond. Kate, how are you?
I am great. Doing good. Hanging in through all this COVID stuff.
That is a lot of stuff, isn't it?
It is.
We had a conversation with the mayor. He was talking about some things that might change in the city. I know that the building is much emptier than it normally is. I mean, it's a building that's emptier than it was 10 years ago as people have left and haven't been replaced. But even over the last number of weeks, couple of months now, I guess, as you all have sent some people, it's got to almost be like a ghost town at times.
Yeah, it's funny. I think the people that are still here, it's brought us all a little bit closer.
Which you shouldn't be, of course.
Well, I mean, emotionally closer.
Cool. When we talked last time, you were taking us through the City of Richmond website, richmondindiana.gov. And a lot of people who maybe have not had a chance to really dive deeply into that site and figure it out. We're trying to give them a chance to learn a little bit more about it, find out how they can interact with it, and find out information. I think there's a lot of great information on there. I know there was a business person during this that was looking for some forms that may all be there. We just don't know that they're there. So talk a little bit about how you track what's going on with the website. I know analytics of a website are incredibly important. I assume you track them. What can you tell us?
Yeah, so we use Google Analytics to do tracking and to get information on what pages are getting the most traffic, if there's any issues with load times, how it breaks down into mobile versus desktop so that we can make sure that our pages are accessible to those using mobile. Over half of our web traffic is, I think about 60% is mobile based, which doesn't come as a surprise. I mean, our phones are so advanced, they're like they're mini computers. So, and I access most web pages on my phone.
But this being an older community, you wouldn't necessarily expect that still, those type of numbers.
Right. That was when I first was doing the analytics, I was a little bit surprised for the community breakdown that was still true here, because I know in a lot of other places that's become really true. So that's a real focus, is making sure when we're designing and looking at the pages that they don't just look good on your computer. The other thing we use the analytics for is to see which pages are getting the most traffic. Consistently over my year and a half here, sanitation pages get the most traffic. And I think that's because it's a service that people rely on and need. They need information about how to access it. If you're a new resident, how do you get a rosy roller? If you move, when's your trash pickup? All that kind of stuff. Where's the landfill? How to do water? All of those things. So really making sure that those pages are accessible and that we're doing everything we can to get that information to the people that need it. So that's one of the other ways we use it. There's whole jobs about Google Analytics. When you log in, it's like very overwhelming, which I'm sure you know. So we just use the tip of the iceberg because of limited resources. But I think it's been a really good tool for us in developing the site further. So.
How do you decide when you're going to update something, when you need to leave it alone? How do you make those decisions?
That is such a good question. Part of it, because I'm the one who does a lot of the web evaluation and trying to prioritize, some of it is based on analytics, right? Like if we have a page like sanitation, that's getting a lot of hits. When I first started, it was like, okay, how do we need to make this a little bit better? So part of it is about the traffic it's getting. We don't want to prioritize a page that's not getting a lot of traffic or that isn't as utilized. Part of it is about how that page fits into the network of pages, so that we're making a complete map. And then part of it is about the department's partnership, right? Is it a priority for the department? So it could be seen as a priority for the larger website, but if that department has bigger priorities than the website, then sometimes the website gets pushed down a little bit just because of an understanding that if you have a fire burning, you can't focus on, something maybe a little bit less urgent than a fire. So it's a very multifaceted thing, and it moves very slowly. So each department page is getting kind of reevaluated. And then the development of new resource pages really comes up as needs arise. So like the COVID-19 resource page, there was a need, it came up. The Clean It Up page, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, that was tied to the spring cleanup last year. And there was a need to organize information, organize tools, and it came up. So it's new pages are need-based. Reorganizing or editing is multifaceted.
The website, if you go to the county's website and click around a little bit, you'll see that some of their departments, sheriff's department, really kind of has their own web page. They're connected, but they have their own page. The clerk is connected, but has its own page. Are there any departments within the city that are connected but have their own page?
That's a really good question. And that decision to do a central page versus kind of microsites or separate institutional pages is different for every organization. And I think it comes down to size and capacity. Within the city, our departments don't have any sites, like individually.
Separate type of.
No. However, there's a couple exceptions. The Highland Golf Course has a separate site for booking tee times and things like that that's not hosted on our domain. And we have our new online farmers market, which is a separate service that is, again, linked from our site, but it's not in our site. It's not hosted with our site. As a general rule, because we are a small staff that to manage this, it's a good practice to not, with our institution, to not have microsites because they're difficult to update, difficult to keep content updated, all of that. Now, if each department in the city had their own sole web editor and IT maintenance person, it would be kind of a different story. But we're not in that position. And with the county, what, for lack of a better term, division or departments are so large that trying to encompass them under one site would, I think, be a little bit more difficult. So they also each have their own kind of permalink. So, branded, like you go to the sheriff department website. So,
right.
Yeah.
And most of the cities are all branded the same, and you all want to keep them as close together as possible. So when somebody comes to richmondindiana.gov, they're able to find pretty much what they need if it's associated with the city.
Yeah, and one of the things, the Parks Department does have their own kind of branding. Sanitation has worked on some of their branding, and one of the things that is on the radar as part of the comprehensive plan that was just completed is looking at our city and department branding and trying to make a unified brand book, so to speak, for both the city and departments so that we can kind of communicate what is department, what is city, because right now it feels like all the city, but how can we differentiate content a little bit? So
you're watching In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're speaking with Kate Kotan, Community Development Coordinator for the City of Richmond. We're spending some time talking about the Richmond, Indiana website, richmondindiana.gov. If you don't know where it is or how to get there, that's where you start. And Kate's going to bring up her screen and kind of take us through some of these places. You were saying that you track what some of your highest hit areas are. What are your 3 or 4 most hit pages right now?
So as of this morning, I logged in this morning. Our homepage is number 1. Then we have our COVID-19 resource page is number 2. And what was number 3? I'm blanking on it right now. Number 3 is the sanitary district. So it vacillates between sanitary district and billing. So those are our top 3 right now. They change, like COVID-19 obviously didn't exist 2 months ago. So
Sure.
right now that's a high hit item, and then but that's that right now. That's where we're at, and I think the homepage has about 7,000 hits, and then I think that was I can't remember what the time frame was on that, but those top 3 have very close numbers. It's not like there's a big range. So, so you want me to dive in and share my screen? Okay.
Let's share your screen.
Okay. So
we'll kind of go through a little bit of what we've got for the City of Richmond website, find some places. Now, we went through some of this previously, so we're going to start with what everybody is concerned about right now, businesses in the community.
Right. So if you are an existing business, or say you're looking to pivot yourself professionally and start a business during this time, or looking to relocate a business here, this Doing Business tab up in the top menu is a great place to start. I'm just going to click here. If you scroll down, it's got some general text, orienting text, like every web page does. And then if you scroll down, we have curated a list of resources based on category that are that we feel are most relevant to businesses. So you see we have utilities, and this links directly to the sanitation and power and light. So if you need to set up or pay your bills, that's where you can do that. And then we have laws and codes. This has the UDO and the city code. These are both really important for businesses as they're looking to develop and grow any facet of their business, to make sure that they're compliant and be really a partner with the city from the get-go. Bids and contracts, this links to if you want to work with the city and want to know what bids are open, you can click here to see that. And then construction is a big one. As you might imagine, the city's involved a lot in construction to make sure that we that everything is compliant, and that, again, we're achieving good partnerships.
Planning, zoning, all of that.
Exactly. So sometimes these resources, I know before I started, I had trouble finding some of these resources. So trying to create that user experience in that funnel. So if you may already know as a business where to find these, but say you don't, say you're from out of town, or you just don't know where to start, this is a great place where we've kind of organized everything. So we have right-of-way excavation if you want to do anything with the streets. If you're a contractor and you need to get licensed with the city, or don't know if you need to get licensed, this is a great page. And then we have 2 of the most important pages for any kind of construction permits and inspections and planning and zoning. And from each of those pages, there's a ton of resources and ton of information. So it just kind of, those are the landing pages for a ton of information and contact information if you just want to pick up the phone and call.
Okay.
Planning and zoning. This has information that has some, we obviously have the Richmond Rising and Parks Plan, both how to get involved and just documentation. We have a link to the EDC, a super great resource. Wayne County Property Search. I didn't know about this when I first moved here, and it's become like the most valuable tool for me in my job. So it's great.
Why is that?
So we should schedule a separate meeting about that. It is amazing.
Okay.
It's also called Beacon, and you can log in and learn all about your property, learn about the city. It has a bunch of layers that you can turn on. It's a partnership between the city and county, and Matt Evans, our GIS coordinator, an interim city planner, is really the person who is the liaison with that. But it's a great tool, and a lot of cities don't have something like this, so it's a huge resource for Richmond. Then we have the Regional Stellar Development Plan, which is the 5-county plan that posited a bunch of projects. I believe it was 2 years ago. So that just kind of shows other planning resources in the area. And then again, that link to that planning and zoning. So as you can see, there's a lot of information here that relates to businesses and both their growth and their maintenance and their support. And each of these pages, for the most part, has contact information.
Are there things off the top of your head that a business might need, forms, things of that nature that maybe aren't here?
Well, that's a great question. So most of the forms that they would need would link from these pages. So we haven't so again, to try to create that experience, there's so many forms that businesses need that rather than list them all out here, we've tried to group them into buckets. So if we go to construction and then permits and inspections, just for example, then you can see you see the ILP packet, the survey. So all of the forms and things are kind of embedded within each of the resources. And that's really because if you're a business, you may not know what an ILP is. So we try to provide that context information. But it's a good question. There are a lot of forms, and that can be really overwhelming for a lot of business owners. Like, what form?
But it's good that a lot of them are there now, because particularly with the city building still closed, people not in every office, they are still able to continue to do business and get the information that they need so that they can continue with what they need to do.
Definitely. Our department is still processing permits online and taking payments over the phone. So yeah, definitely our planning and development and permits are still happening, as are obviously all the services like streets and sanitation. So technology is a great tool for enabling consistency in a crisis.
And if you're driving around, you can still tell construction is still going on. Streets and sidewalks are still being repaired. Things like that are still happening.
Houses are still selling, and businesses are adapting, it seems. I can't imagine how difficult it would be to be a business owner during this time, but we're here as a support.
Cool. You're watching In Focus on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're talking with Kate Kotan, Community Development Coordinator for the City of Richmond, going through the Richmond, Indiana website, so that if you are in need of something, looking for information and don't exactly know where to go, but it has to do with the city, a lot of it may be here. So to make it easier for you to find and feel more comfortable as you try to navigate it, we're spending some time, and Kate's kind of taking us through it. So we could talk about the next one up. We went through kind of doing business. If we go to living.
Yeah. So this is, again, geared towards kind of two audiences. If you live here already, or if you are looking to relocate. Again, we have the kind of services and resources. It's the same model. And there's a lot of redundancy here. There's a lot of overlap. Utilities and trash, we've expanded it a little bit because residents need more than just setting up utilities. So what are the snow removal, the tree? I'd like to come back to clean it up in just a minute. But you see there's a little bit more here. Parking and transportation. This is just a link to kind of what you'd imagine: public transportation, biking, if that's how you get around, parking resources if you need a handicap tag or things like that, and then state and road traffic resources is really more about projects and things.
Okay.
Culture and education is one of my favorites because it links to a lot of our resources in the community. So we have links to culture and amenities here in Richmond. So these are all external links. So if you are looking to relocate here and you're like, what is the culture in Richmond? It's a nice way to kind of get acclimated. So if you click on museums, for example, it takes you to WayNet and lists out all the kind of museums there.
Cool. I have to admit, I've clicked around the website quite a bit. I have not hit on this one.
This was recently maybe it was done 8 months ago or so. So it hasn't, but it hasn't been done that long. Okay. Building and development is the same as under business. They're kind of the same thing. No real change there. Public safety, we have some links here to how to file a police report, open burning, prevention, things like that. This is an area I hope to grow a little bit as we are able to build out different parts of the website. This is my second
police reporting system. What is that, real quickly?
So I'll click that real quick. And so there's information here. I'm not going to go through it all. And then there's links here to a kind of a third party thing where this is a fuel drive off report type, and you can file it.
Okay.
Yeah. This is my second favorite category, and that's the recreation and outdoor activities. So you can get information on how to use the play in the plaza, the new stuff at Elstro Plaza, the like foosball and things like that.
Yeah.
And then there's a ton of state parks within like an hour of here, and trying to educate people about what they may or may not be aware of. I know when I first moved here, I'm from Florida, and being close to water was really important to me. And I was excited to know that there's so many bodies of water close to here. So linking to those, again, we have our more local resources like the Rose Garden, Cardinal Greenway, et cetera. And then our city assets like the Cordell Pool and the Highland Golf Course and Senior Center. And this is a section where it's not meant to be exhaustive. It's just meant to be the highest kind of quick hitting things, the biggest. It was difficult to kind of narrow it down, but we don't want to make it too exhaustive. Okay. Civic engagement. We start with news because that is a recently developed page and is where you can find alerts, announcement, press releases. Citizen request for action is a new tool. If you have something to report that's not police-based, you can report that there. We have, instead of putting this under planning, we have the Richmond Rising Plan, signing up for emergency alerts. If you want to know about
Nixle?
Yes, that's Nixle. Mm-hmm. Current and future infrastructure projects. Part of what is defined as, I think one way to define civic engagement is educating yourself about what's going on. So that's why this is here. If you want to watch WCTV, City Council, you can click here.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
Nice.
And then opportunities to get involved with parks and public records. Okay. So really, this is kind of a category for education and engagement.
Nice.
And then the county, we have the tourism, the Home and Wayne page, which has a lot of great data and information. Really good if you're looking to relocate here, and then the property search. So as you can see, these pages have a ton of information, and we've looked at it on a desktop, but I do want to show real quick. I started out by saying like 60% of our viewers are on mobile.
Yeah.
So I'm going to stop sharing just for a second.
Okay.
And I want to show you all what it looks like on mobile, because I actually think it's a little bit more user-friendly on mobile. So I'm going to go to the city website. The navigation's the same. So I go to the city website, and then I pull up the tab, the menu is on the top, and I'm going to go to living. And then instead of having the two text boxes, you just go directly into the meat and potatoes. So directly into services and resources. And then you can click on each of these categories and they expand down below. So if you click it, you may be like, where are they? They're down below. And then you can just click on any of them and it will either open up a new window or open up in that browser. So this page used to be super unmobile friendly, and our developers in New York who manage the site got it looking really snazzy. So I'm really excited about this. So if you're using your phone to not access the website, just know that those pages, if you tried them before and like I couldn't find anything, they've been updated. Okay.
Talk for a minute about how much time you actually spend, and I know that you do a lot in your office, but talk a little bit about how much time you spend talking to your webmasters about updates that need to be done, things you want to see on the page, gathering the information, getting it to them. What's that process?
So his name's Asher, and Asher and I spent a ton of time talking when I first started. I had like documents and screenshots and pages and all these like, this is what we're going to do with the website, Asher. We became like BFFs. I think he was like ready to like ship me off somewhere. We became very close friends very fast. And then due to kind of how our contract works, it became easier for us to do them piecemeal rather than doing them wholesale. So what we ended up doing was over the first maybe 6 months of my job, I broke up my biggest projects into every week, and I would just schedule out, okay, this is the update we're going to do this week. This is, and just do it that way. Then we kind of hit a plateau and I didn't need as many updates. And so now I just send them to him in a quick email as they come up. So like I needed to make a change to the news page, and I just shot him an email and I was like, hey, can you do this? This is what I'm thinking I want it to look like. Is that possible? And then 10 minutes later, he emails me back and he's like, done. So my changes at this point are primarily experience-based and aesthetic. There's not too many structural changes, but initially there were a lot of page shifting, moving things around that required kind of bigger conversations. So Asher and I would say email. Sometimes we'll email 3 times a week, and sometimes it'll be a month. It just kind of depends. But we have a good relationship, which is key to any kind of project like this. Having him understanding how I work and vice versa. So,
for people that are really trying to get involved with the city, are there certain resources that you really try to promote to people so that they can get a feel for what's going on, so that they can go, they can get help, they can do that type of thing? And is that type of thing also part of the website now that you've done some updates?
I think that aspect of what you're talking about is something that I want to build more into the website. Part of the need for that is to have a back-end database that we don't have. So I'm still exploring ways to do that in a sustainable way. But I think that right now, the first part of what you talked about, places where people can go for information and services, I hope that there are those places now on the website. It just depends on what they're looking for. So if they're looking for sanitation related things or cleanup related things, there's the Clean It Up page. And I can show that to you real quick if you want.
Yes. You mentioned that you were going to go back to that. So
I did, and then I failed to go back to it. So I'll share my screen real quick.
Okay.
So this arose from a need, and again, there's a couple different ways to get to this, but I'm on the living page under utilities and trash. It's also on the sanitation page, and I think a couple of code enforcement. We've tried to publish it a couple places, but this arose from a need for people in the community to try to, instead of separating out code enforcement and sanitation and cleanup and maintenance and all of those things, trying to do a kind of cross-departmental information resource that would highlight how citizens can be more proactive in their property maintenance. So this has been around for about
Wonderful.
Yeah. So we have the solid waste collection map, and this is, I think it's an iframe. I can't remember how I did it now. Yeah, it's an iframe. So you can click around and you can search by your address. So if we look at the city building, North 5th Street, we search it, and then we see we're in this yellow spot. So we zoom out. Our pickup is Friday. And so it's a nice way to find that out. And then if you want to know when your recycling is, you click on this calendar, and then you can find out when your recycling pickup is. So that's one of the first things, because it's when you move, I
know when your trash is picked up.
We get a lot of calls.
You move, you're creating a lot of trash.
Exactly. So much trash. And then these are the resources that relate to how do you keep your property clean. So we have the citizens request for action, special pickups, how they work, what they look like, the collection schedule, a whole page devoted to containers, the landfill, and then trash and recycling pickup, which is kind of a replication of the map. This container page, I just want to show you real quick because I was really excited about this page because I learned a lot in making this page. So I learned the difference between a Rosie roller and a Richie roller because, I knew the words, but I didn't know what they meant. And so we put pictures of them because a lot of people are visual, right? So put pictures and showed how to get one. And then you can reserve all these kinds of containers for your house and they will drop them off. And it shows how to do that. Simple, what the fee is, how and what. And so you can get that, a 3 cubic yard container and a 14 cubic yard roll off, and just how it works and what to do. And so this is a really good way for those people who are like, I can't get to the landfill. Like, I have health issues or I have transportation issues. I only have a smart car, call and get a container. And that's a really good way to still be a proactive property owner. So yeah, this page is a really good resource. And unfortunately, it hasn't gotten as much traffic as I would like to see. So I need to figure out a way to market it and get it out there a little bit better.
Well, I think you showing it will definitely help, because again, as I've moved around, and one of the reasons I reached out to you was I saw changes that were taking place in the website, and I thought they were good. I thought they needed to be highlighted. But this Clean It Up page is one that you showed me that I had not yet hit upon. So I think letting people know. One of the things, and we're down to our last couple of minutes, that people sometimes get frustrated about when they go to a website is the generic nature of it. You are able to get to an office, but you can't find out who's in the office and who you need to talk to and what their phone number. It really kind of is a way for organizations to keep you at a distance. Here, send us an email. Is this one a little bit better in that way?
I will say it is. So under contact, we have our directory, and not every city I've done a ton of research on other cities' websites to try to gauge the field, and not every city publishes even staff names.
Right.
A lot of places it's just department head and you'll get a generic email. And Richmond publishes emails, phone numbers, and contact information for staff that is that's relevant. Now, that doesn't mean that our entire sanitation crew who their job doesn't need to have contact information. But for any staff member that has a need for contact information, you can get in touch with them, and it creates a more personal feel that I think really speaks to Richmond as a city. So under contact and directory, we have it contact information organized by department, staff, and board. And from here, you can click to view each department, and it has name, like I said, email and phone number, and then staff. It just lists out the staff. And then from here, you can click and get more information. So photos are there for department heads only. That's a security thing. But the goal here is really to create a bridge. We're a small enough community where people know each other. We become known entities, and try to facilitate that a little bit.
Nice. Kate Kotan, who is the Community Development Coordinator for the City of Richmond. We're going to have you back again.
Awesome. I'm so excited.
Maybe not so quick, but you mentioned on the Wayne County property search and said that that's something that our residents should be able to know about and be able to find some information about. So that's something that we definitely want to be able to bring back and get some information. I think the more we show people the amount of information that is out there and how easily accessible it is, the better off it is for our residents, the better off it is for our city, and the more connected we feel as a whole. So thank you for the time in doing this.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity, Eric. I think that you're completely right, and I really appreciate WCTV's commitment to it.
All right. We'll be back with more In Focus in just a moment. I'm Eric Marsh, Executive Director of WCTV. I'm having a chance to talk flowers. Roses in particular, with Beth Van Der Burgt, who is the president of the Richmond Rose Garden. Beth, thanks for being back with us again.
Thank you for having me, Eric.
This is another one of those things that, as we talk about the pandemic, is a sad story, kind of, because we will lose this year's bloom and glow. But one of the good parts is the Rose Garden still exists and people can walk at any time, right?
That's correct. Yes, we planted new roses and the roses will bloom, and we would love to have as many visitors as possible.
Talk a little bit about, for those who don't know, real quickly, kind of the history of the Rose Garden, where it is, why it is, and what people will see when they go through it.
Well, the Richmond Rose Garden, as I refer to it, is actually called the All-American Rose Garden, and it was dedicated in the summer of 1987, right alongside the E.G. Hill Garden, which was celebrating its 50th anniversary. And it was dedicated to keep the legacy of E.G. Hill going in the community. So it kind of was a logical place for the committee that got together for the Rose Garden to put it there. And so we're right in front of Glenn Miller Park, right along US 440. I've heard the term for us, we're the front door to the park. Yeah, kind of. And so we've been there for 30, 40 years, all volunteer. The park, they help us as much as they can, but obviously they have a lot of properties to take care of. So our volunteers maintain the roses ourselves entirely. We don't, they do just a few things for us.
When you say maintain, you all take care of, plant, replant, mulch, the whole 9 yards.
You are correct. We just planted 102 roses last week. So yes, we have volunteers who help plant and weed and deadhead and water when we plant new things, and just do anything that we need to do to make the roses look nice, mulch. It goes on all year from about April to November, and then when we're not actually working, we're planting. Things like Bloom and Glow. And first Bloom and Glow came to be to celebrate the first blooms in the Rose Garden. And actually, we used to kind of celebrate it, but it was really small. And then someone gave us the idea, hey, why don't you make it a big event? And over we've done it for 7 years, and this will be the first year to not do it. It's grown into a really large, very cool event, and we are super proud of what that's become.
You just mentioned you planted 102 roses last week. Is that like a normal planting year? Is that a little large? Why that seems like a large number to me.
It's been our normal for about the last 3 years for various reasons. Some of the roses haven't winterized as well as they had in the past. Some of our winters have been kind of strange lately with you get these warm days for a while, and the roses will leaf out, and then you get a really hard freeze, and it could kill a whole plant if it's not established yet. So for us, it's been normal to plant 100 roses. And then there are new areas where we're adding. We took out some bushes. We wanted to fill in some areas, and so it's kind of our normal.
If people haven't been there and they start to walk through, you all have been doing some updating. You just talked about taking out some bushes and doing some things. You all were doing a capital campaign to really kind of make the walking a little bit easier in that area. Talk about how that's gone, and are we going to see some changes in the near future?
Yes, we're pretty excited about that. Our walkways are actually pretty noteworthy. They are made out of star bricks. They were donated, Mayor Walterman, they had stockpiled them in the city and didn't know what to do with them, donated them to the Rose Garden. So the bricks have been there for over 30 years, just laying on a bed of sand. And in the Midwest, when it gets hot and cold in the winter and we get these freezing and thawing, those are starting to pop up, and it's starting to become harder for our volunteers and our visitors to walk. And we really want people to be able to stroll through our garden. So we have been working really hard for the last 5 years to put together a project, and we are going to refurbish and revitalize those walkways. So this fall, you will see a lot of work being done at the Rose Garden, where we are going to pull up those star bricks. They will be saved because they will be put back down, and the bed below them is going to be like an aggregate, make it much sturdier. There'll be edging, and then the bricks will be put back because every person we've met with has talked to us about how cool those bricks are.
Watching an In Focus short conversation. We're talking with Beth Van Der Burgt, who is the president of the Richmond Rose Garden here. Some of the bricks that you're talking about actually are memorials. Is it still possible to do that, and explain to us how that works?
Yes, it is still possible to do a memorial brick, and you can go to the Wayne County Foundation to order your brick, or the order form is available on our website. And you can do it for somebody in your family who's passed. They don't have to have lived in Richmond. We've got bricks for people who are alive and well because they just love flowers, or they got engaged there, or their class reunion happened, or, I mean, if you walk along the fence line, the fence that's on US 40, our side where the bricks are, there's a long couple of stretches where there are these memorial bricks. And sometimes I just walk and look at the names and what they mean. And it's a really neat experience. So yes, we're still doing that.
You talked about walking along the fence line, and that fence wasn't always there. It's interesting. In one configuration, it's really kind of meant to, I think, keep some of the salt from blowing up on the roses, and on the other side, it allows you to view. Has that actually worked out the way it was planned?
Yes, and it's actually worked out really well. At first, there were some people who were like, what are you guys doing? That's crazy. But now everybody likes being able to drive along US 40 and see the roses as they're driving. And yes, it has worked out to prevent that salt spray from getting on the roses. We have rose bushes planted right directly behind the fence, right, and they do really well. And some of those were transplanted. They were there when it was a wall, about 2/3 or half to 2/3 we put back, the others are new. And they all are doing really well.
Nice. For people who like flowers, moving into the area, didn't know this organization existed, talk a little bit about it. Are you still taking in volunteers? Do you still need additional help? And how are you all working on your gardens during this pandemic? There is that social distancing thing you're supposed to be doing.
We are always looking for new volunteers. We always have a spot for people. And if all you want to do is we can find a place for you. Most of us have a specific section that we care for. And some sections have groups, some have just one or two volunteers. And a lot of times if you're by yourself, you can always welcome another volunteer. And yeah, we've still been actively working. We took April off just because of the pandemic and the social distancing. But during the planting last week, we basically worked in teams of 2 to 3 people, and we worked 6 different times. So morning, evening. So we had a schedule with shifts. And what I did is I came at 7 a.m. and placed the roses where they needed to be planted. So when the volunteer arrived, all they had to do was follow the steps we gave them to plant. So because some of us weren't there to show them because of the social distancing. But it worked out quite well. All the plants were planted, and the last 2 days they've been watered, so we haven't even had to go back to water them, which was kind of refreshing actually, because that can be tricky too. But yes, many of us are happy to be outside. We're happy to be working in the garden. And yeah, the only difficulties with the social distancing is we miss talking to one another, and we have to be reminded of how far 6 feet is apart. But we all care for each other enough that we don't want to make anybody ill. But yes, our volunteers are working harder than ever.
Talk about how people connect with you and the organization if they're interested in volunteering, finding out a little bit more information, and also talk about when the park is open so that people can legally walk through.
That's a good question. The park is open legally from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. And if you want to volunteer at the Rose Garden, you can do the contact us on our website. It's right on the homepage on the bottom, and the email will come to one of us. You can also call the Wayne County Foundation, and Teresa Scruggs would get your name to us. And then the last thing is there's a new Wayne County volunteer website that we are a part of. I don't remember the URL to that. It's right on the front of our website as well, but it's something that the foundation has put together, and there's maybe 20 to 30 of us nonprofits as a part of that. So as somebody new to Wayne County, you can go in and see what all there is to do in Wayne County and where you can volunteer. So we are one of those organizations as well. And we also get volunteers by word of mouth. So we have several ways you can get to us, and we would be happy to have as many people who would like to volunteer.
If somebody is looking to see some flowers, they just They need that, and they can't wait for the blooms in a couple of weeks. Where is the best place to find on social media some of the pictures that you were talking about? Your Facebook page? Are you on Instagram? Talk about your social media.
Sure. Yeah, we have a Facebook page. That's where I've been posting the roses. We do have an Instagram. I don't post as much there, but we created that for others to post. Because on Facebook, it's a little bit difficult when a visitor comes and they post. We don't see the pictures as quickly, but we have seen some really cool pictures when visitors come and they will post as a visitor on our Facebook. So yes, we would love to see as many pictures as we can on social media. I know in the past we would see proms and different dances or weddings. Some of that's kind of been canceled, but even if someone visits and sees, wow, that rose looks really pretty, and takes a picture, feel free to share it with us.
Area Rose Garden is a place where you can go and enjoy the beauty. It's in Glen Miller Park. Beth, anything else that you want to make sure people know?
Just how grateful we are to be a part of this community, and what we feel we provide, just a respite place for people to kind of take a break and stop and smell the roses. And, our new logo and our tagline is, experience life in full bloom, and that's our desire for our community.
Beth, appreciate the time and appreciate the pictures as we kind of go through this time frame. It's been really nice.
Thank you so much for having me, and always a pleasure to tell the community what's happening at the Rose Garden.
All right. Thanks for the time. Take care.
Sure.
We're having a chance to speak with Sharon McDowell, who is the director of Help the Animals. Sharon, thanks for spending some time with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure. You and I have not had a chance to talk to each other before. Give us a little bit of your background. How long have you been director of Help the Animals?
I've been the director of Help the Animals for about 2.5 years. Before that, I was a volunteer coordinator. And before that, I volunteered for a couple of years.
So you've been around the animals for quite a while.
I have, yes.
Right now, there are a lot of people thinking about owning an animal, adopting an animal. Talk a little bit about what your process is, how many animals you have coming in right now.
Well, right now, last month, for the month of April, we had a total of 55 animals that we took into the shelter. Some of them were puppies, some of them were mama cats with babies, with a whole litter. And then we have a contract with animal control. So we get all the animals from the city that also come into the shelter.
During this time, are you being fairly successful with your adoption program? Are you able to kind of keep up the numbers coming in with the numbers going out? Because I assume space is limited.
Yes, it's pretty close. Our adoption numbers are down a little bit from normal because we're operating by appointment only. And so we're not open to the public, and people just can't walk in whenever they want. We're pre-screening so that they have an application filled out ahead of time. And that way we get them approved, so when they actually do come into the shelter for an appointment, they're already approved and they're ready to go.
If someone is thinking about adopting a pet, you're talking about pre-screening. Talk about the process of pre-screening. What do you mean? What kind of process do they have to go through? What kind of information are you looking for from them?
Well, there's lots of things we look at. One of the most important things is, do they own their own home or do they rent? If they rent, then we do need to get approval from their landlord to have an animal placed in that home.
Okay.
We look at a lot of other factors. We look at, excuse me, do they have a fence? Are they wanting to adopt a dog that is an escape artist? How tall is that fence? We have dogs that can jump a 6-foot fence. So we have to watch out for that. We watch out for if there's other animals in the home. Is there children in the home? Is there cats in the home? We have dogs that don't get along with other dogs. We have dogs that do not do well with cats because they will attack them. So we have to be really careful how we place animals. We have to make sure that we look at all those factors before we send an animal home.
When somebody's looking for an appointment, let's go there. How do they reach out to you? How far in advance do they need to make an appointment? What's your schedule like? You all are obviously working, I assume, limited hours, trying to be safe.
Yes. We have someone at the shelter Tuesday through Saturday. Right now we're scheduling appointments between 12 noon and 4 p.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And we tend to fill up that schedule. Now, if the schedule gets a little too full, we can open it up to the other days of the week. And we have it set up where we know if they're coming in just to buy pet meds, and we allot 15 minutes for that. If they're coming in to finalize an adoption, we allow 30 minutes for that. If they're coming in to look at an animal or to find an animal, we allow an hour for them to spend time with several animals and get to know them. And yes, sometimes it does take several visits until they feel comfortable. We do have a foster program, so if they're not sure about a particular animal, they can fill out a foster application, take it home and foster them. It's called a foster to adopt. So they can foster an animal for up to a week to see if that animal's going to work in their home or not. And they would either return the animal or come in and do the adoption paperwork.
You're watching an In Focus short conversation on Whitewater Community Television's WGTV Channel 11. We're speaking with Sharon McDowell, who's the director of Help the Animals on West Main Street, 2101 West Main. Talk a little bit about for us, if you would, Sharon, what you all are doing in the way of social distancing, taking care of yourselves as well as taking care of the animals. We've heard on and off that pets could potentially get the coronavirus. Talk about what your expectation of residents are when they come in for an appointment. Do they need to be masked up? Is your staff masked up?
Our staff is masked up. We all wear face masks anytime we're working with the public, because we don't know who's walking in that door or what their background is or where they're coming from. So we have a sign on our front desk asking them to wait for an employee to escort them in. And then also on that sign, we ask that they wear protective equipment. We would prefer that everyone that comes in to look at animals wear a face mask just for safety reasons. We are putting in a petition over the front desk, which is a plastic partition that you've seen in banks and some of the other places,
right,
for our own safety, so we don't spread anything to them or get anything from them. So we're very careful about spacing out appointments, so we only have 1 to 2 people in the lobby at a time. So we're very careful about that.
If someone is thinking about it, wants to reach out to you all, give an address. Is there a website? If they want to see pictures of pretty kitties, they want to go on your Facebook page. Talk about what you're doing as far as social media and letting people know even your needs at this point, and maybe talk about what your needs are if you have any. Donations, dog food, cat food.
Yeah. We are a nonprofit organization, and we are 100% funded by the community. So all our cleaning supplies, our bleach, our detergents, laundry detergents, sanitizing detergents, trash bags, hand sanitizer, all that kind of stuff is donated to us from the community. And so we're greatly, greatly supported by the community in that way. So that has been really, really helpful to keep us going.
What is your primary means of reaching the community? Do you use a lot in the way of social media? And are you Facebook? Are you Twitter? Do you do any of that at all?
We do. We have a Facebook page, and it's helptheanimalsinc.com. And on our Facebook page, you can go into the Adopt tab, and you can look at all the animals that we have, cats and dogs, so you can get a preview of them before you ever come to the shelter, if there's a particular animal you'd like to see. Mm-hmm. Then we have a Facebook page, which is also Help the Animals, Inc. And that Facebook page is very active. We post every adoption, people that have lost pets, that are looking for pets, that have found pets. We post pictures on our Facebook page to try and help reunite them with their families. Whenever we're in need of anything, we post that on our Facebook page. Any events that we have coming up or going on is on our Facebook page. Okay. So we have a lot of people. We have several thousand people that follow us on Facebook.
Nice. How, and last question, if you don't mind, as we get through the other side of this pandemic, talk about what you all plan to do to kind of get back out there in the community. I know that sometimes there are events at the Bark Park and things of that nature. What type of things are you all thinking about looking at doing as we kind of head into the summer and the fall, if anything?
There are several major events that we do every year. Every spring and every fall, we have a vaccination clinic, and it's held at the fairgrounds in one of the buildings there. Okay. And we just had to cancel our spring one because the city building was closed. So I'm not sure if we're going to be able to get that rescheduled for the spring or not. Okay. We're working on that right now. And then every year, our biggest event that we have is Pet Walk, which is held at Glenn Miller Park, and everybody brings their animals and they go on a big walk, and we have contests and entertainment, all kinds of fun things going on, giveaways.
The dogs are dressed up.
Yep. We have costume contests. Yep. So that's our biggest event of the year. And we're not really sure what's going to happen with that event this year. We've been talking about if it's not feasible to have it in July at Glenn Miller Park, then maybe we would have to do something on a virtual type of program. Okay. But we're hoping to do it live. So
keep us up to date with what you decide on that.
Yes.
Anything I haven't asked you? Anything else you want the community to know before I let you go?
Come on in, look at the animals, adopt. We'd love to see you.
All right. Sharon McDowell, Director of Help the Animals, Inc., 2101 West Main Street. Thanks for taking some time.
Thank you.